Hello my sweeties and welcome back to my channel. If you don't already know me, my name is Celise and thank you for joining my spooky little family. In today's video, we will be talking more about horror movies for hot girls and hot girls only. Let's get into the video. Okay, so in the last horror movies for hot girls video, I gave you 6, and today in part 2, I am going to give you 10. When coming up with this list, it was really difficult to narrow it down to just 10 because there are so many good horror movies for this kind of video. But I carefully picked each one. I have some fun ones. I have some that are more thriller-esque. And let's just get right into it. At number 10, we have Satanic Panic, directed by Chelsea Stardust. A minimum wage delivery girl is forced into a night-long battle with the affluent leaders of a suburban community after discovering that they are all a part of a satanic cult. So this movie just absolutely fucking rules. We have a really fun cast in this movie, including a girl that I would die for, Ruby Modine. She is awesome in this. I also want to say that this movie, it just has so much charm, and it isn't the most unique thing I've ever seen, but it is the way that Chelsea kind of puts her own flair as a director that does it for me. I absolutely love the set design and a lot of the costumes. I think they're done really well. There is an amazing headpiece that our leading lady has on towards the end of the movie. She is played by the very talented Rebecca Romijn. There's some really baddie outfits in this, including amazing headdresses. I absolutely love the way they use the color red in this movie. And overall, the film is just a vibe. And honestly, for a horror comedy, I think this one is pretty good. And not a lot of horror comedies do it for me, but this one does. Now at number 9, we have The Beguiled, directed by Sofia Coppola. The unexpected arrival of a wounded Union soldier at a girls' school in Virginia during the American Civil War leads to jealousy and betrayal. This film stars Nicole Kidman and Elle Fanning, and this movie, again, this is just a movie for the girls. We stan. We have great performances from Nicole Kidman, Elle Fanning, and Kirsten Dunst. I will also say that Colin Farrell does do a good job in his role as well. But this film is all about the women. They just eat up every single scene, specifically Kirsten Dunst and Nicole Kidman. So this film is definitely more of a thriller than it is a horror movie. So just keep that in mind. It is definitely a slow burn, but I think it is so worth it. I will also say, if you're a fan of period pieces like me, you are gonna love this. Again, similar to what I said about Satanic Panic, I absolutely love the costume design, and the cinematography in this film in particular is done very, very beautifully. Now at number 8, we have Prevenge, directed by Alice Lowe. Widow Ruth is 7 months pregnant when believing herself to be guided by her unborn baby. She embarks on a homicidal rampage, dispatching anyone who stands in her way. So Alice Lowe is an absolute queen. I believe she wrote and directed and even produced this film. She did an amazing, amazing job. This film is actually available on Shudder if you would like to see it, as well as Satanic Panic. Prevenge is definitely a great pregnancy horror movie. If you're like me, then like pregnancy and horror go well together, because that is one thing that truly terrifies me. But really, I think that the script for Prevenge was written incredibly well, and everything was just so well thought out. And I love like the haunting imagery in this movie. Specifically, the final shot is so good. The final shot is really what sold everything for me, where I was like, this movie is amazing. And I just want more horror movies from Alice Lowe. She is amazing. She's hilarious. She's terrifying. And I mean, she's just a killer actress in this movie. 10 out of 10 recommend if you want to see this woman killing it, literally. Now at number 7, we have one of my absolute favorites, and that is May, directed by Lucky McKee. A socially awkward veterinary assistant with a lazy eye and obsession with perfection descends into depravity after developing a crush on a boy with perfect hands. This film stars Angela Bettis, Anna Faris, and Jeremy Sisto, and they are all amazing. I am obsessed with this movie because the overall look is just so grungy and so of its time. Not to mention Lucky McKee is just a brilliant filmmaker, other than All Cheerleaders Must Die because that movie was a hot mess. But anyway, I did really like Lucky McKee's work in Masters of Horror. He actually did an episode with Angela Bettis called Sick Girl, and if you guys haven't seen that, that one is also really good. May is one of those movies that it is really awkward and hard to watch because of how awkward and like how good Angela Bettis is at just being uncomfortable on the screen. She makes you physically feel uncomfortable and she does a great job with that. I also just think that the story is somewhat relatable and really heartbreaking and also terrifying. So what more could you want in a horror movie? 100% recommend. Now at number 6, on a lighter note, we have Alice, Sweet Alice, directed by Alfred So. In 1961, a divorced Catholic couple's life is turned upside down when one of their 2 adolescent daughters is suspected of her younger sister's brutal murder during her first Holy Communion and a series of subsequent stabbings. So if you've been a part of this channel from the very beginning, you know I go hard for Alice, Sweet Alice. It is one of my favorite movies of that time. This movie is so good. It is one of the best slashers ever, and I will stand by that. This is actually Brooke Shields' first movie, so if you didn't know that, the more you know. This is one of those movies from the 70s that has very over-the-top acting, which I absolutely love that. It's just a part of the style and the charm, and it just hits. I also just am really obsessed with religious horror movies and any horror movies that take place in churches. So this movie just immediately hit for me. I do also want to point out that the little girl in this film is terrifying, and her getup when she does slice and dice is pretty scary. But I think that Alice, Sweet Alice is a highly underrated film, so if you have not checked this one out, I definitely think you would like it. Speaking of very underrated movies, at number 5 we have one that I wasn't sure I was gonna put on this list because it is just so underground and weird. And I really wasn't sure if any of you guys would like it, but you guys know I love bringing you movies that maybe you have missed. So at number 5, we have Gore Whore, directed by Hugh Gallagher. When a lab assistant steals an important formula and all its documentation from Dr. Whitman, he hires a bottom-of-the-barrel private eye, Chase Barr, to locate it. When Barr digs deeper into the case, he finds the lab assistant is actually a dead street woman, and the formula is a reanimation agent that, with the consumption of human blood, is keeping her alive. Okay, so Gore Whore, I did not think it would be for me. This is a shot on video horror film. It is definitely really cheap and gross and stupid, but that is why I put it on this list. This is one of those movies that, like, if you like stupid movies like Don't Fuck in the Woods and stuff like that, you would definitely appreciate Gore Whore. Because this film is shot on video, there are some moments where you can barely see what the hell is happening on screen and everything's really fuzzy. But you know, it's part of the charm. I will also say that our leading lady is a fucking baddie. She's a baddie and I am obsessed with her. I want to be her, and that's it. Love my vamp girls. Now at number 4, to nobody's surprise, we have Raw, directed by Julia Ducournau. A young woman studying to be a vet suddenly develops a craving for human flesh. I am sure you guys have heard me talk up Julia Ducournau. I talk her up with good reason. She is a brilliant filmmaker. She's a great writer. And I absolutely love the way she tells her stories. Everything about her films is just so human and so relatable. I also just feel like Julia Ducournau writes films for gay women, and you know what? I love that. But really, Raw, if you have not seen it, it has some amazing performances, specifically from Garance Mariller. She does a great job. I mean, she carries this movie on her back. She is incredible. Her mannerisms, her body language, she nails everything. If you're a fan of ginger snaps, you would probably like Raw. So if you haven't seen it, get to it. Now at number 3, we have an absolute classic, and that is Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, directed by Robert Aldrich. 2 aging film actresses live as virtual recluses in an old Hollywood mansion. Jane Hudson, a successful child star, cares for her crippled sister Blanche, whose career in later years eclipsed that of Jane. Now the two live together, their relationship affected by simmering subconscious thoughts of mutual envy, hate, and revenge. I actually recently did a review of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane last month, so if you have not seen that, I will link it up there. You should definitely check it out. I was obsessed with this movie. I actually was recommended this film by one of my patrons, Andy, and I cannot be more grateful. The performances from Joan Crawford and Bette Davis are absolutely amazing. But you guys know that. You know that. They're queens. I will also say that not only are their performances great, this is just a really good script, and it was directed very well. Speaking of baddies killing the game, at number 2, we have Alucarda, directed by Juan Lopez Moctezuma. After the death of her parents, a young girl arrives at a convent and brings a sinister presence with her. Is it her enigmatic imaginary friend Alucarda who is to blame, or is there a satanic force at work? I actually watched this film a few weeks ago with my friend Dylan. This is a 70s English language Mexican horror film, and again, you guys know I love religious horror movies, and this movie is so much fun. This is the perfect midnight movie. I do want to say we have amazing performances from all the women in this movie, especially Tina Romero, who plays Alucarda, and Susanna Camini, who plays Justine. Both of these women were just like screaming their lungs out. They were amazing. And also for them to shoot this movie and just speak English the entire time when it is not their first language was amazing. I mean, they did an amazing job. There is also some really great costume design in this movie too that I really enjoyed, especially Alucarda's outfits. Love her, obsessed. I also want to point out that I was absolutely loving how much I could tell Justine and Alucarda were in love. They were in love. But again, if you are into 70s horror films and you've not seen Alucarda yet, you definitely need to check this out. Now at the number 1 spot, we have one of my favorite watches this year, and that is Last Night in Soho, directed by Edgar Wright. An aspiring fashion designer is mysteriously able to enter the 1960s, where she encounters a dazzling wannabe singer. But the glamour is not all it appears to be, and the dreams of the past start to crack and splinter into something darker. I also recently did a review of this film. I will link it above if you'd like to check it out. But Last Night in Soho pleasantly surprised me. I thought it might be one of those movies that's all style and no substance, but it absolutely was not. I am a fan of Edgar Wright and his work and his style, so this movie, it just impressed me. I also want to point out that I love the performances from Thomasin McKenzie and Anya Taylor-Joy. I also was a big fan of Diana Rigg. I think she did a great job. Like I said in my review of this movie just reminded me of how much I love filmmaking and acting, and I am just obsessed. It was a great story, the acting was great, and there was some amazing practical effects in this movie. So much of this movie is practical, and you wouldn't think so until you're like me and you end up on YouTube watching Edgar Wright talking about all these cool camera tricks that he was doing. Like, I have seen probably 20 videos. Also, we all know this movie is for the girlies because we have our queen, Anya Taylor-Joy, in this. Like, are you kidding? If you did not get to catch Last Night in Soho in theaters, I believe it's on demand right now, so I highly recommend putting it up there on your list because it is so worth it. All right, you guys, that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe as it really helps me a lot, and be sure to click that little notification bell to be up to date every single time I upload. And let me know in the comments, have you seen any of these films? Which one on the list are you most excited to check out? I'd love to talk about it. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.